Governor John Hickenlooper said this week that he was disappointed lawmakers did not tackle what he calls Colorado's fiscal thicket during the legislative session. The governor plans to take his proposal to the people through a series of town hall meetings this summer and fall. And you reported about this story yesterday. Tell us about it, and what is the proposal that Governor Hickenlooper intends to bring to these town hall meetings this year?
Good. Well, I hope we've got about 40 minutes to discuss this, because that's what it's going to take to explain this. But in some sort of short summary, a bill passed 6 years ago to remove what is called the fiscal bird limit. That's our complicated part coming in here, that limited general fund growth. One of the provisions of this bill said that only general fund money would go again to transportation only after we see personal income growth of 5% for a year. That happened in 2014. We're starting to see it. We're starting to get this transportation money, except there was another provision of that 2009 bill that said, oh, but if there are TABOR limits of between 1 and 3, TABOR refunds of between 1 and 3%, you only get half the money for transportation, and if they're more than 3% of the general fund budget, then you don't get any at all. Lost yet? Okay, this is what Hickenlooper is going to have to go explain to the people this year. That what he wanted to do was to take the hospital provider fee, which also passed during the, what is now looking back as a really kind of thoughtless 2009 session, and was put in under the TABOR cap, despite the fact that no general fund tax money goes into the hospital provider fee. And he wants to take that out, make it an enterprise. That frees up $700 million a year that can still go in under the TABOR cap. And what that would do is make sure that transportation gets its funding, and it also would make sure that education and others get it. Okay, this is what he's got to pitch against people who are going to say, well, I hate the hospital provider fee anyway, because what you did is fairly illegal, and it's just used to leverage money from the federal government to pay for increased Medicaid bills, which is already hurting our state budgets. But if he can pull this off, he can do two things that he did not, the two major ththings he did not get done from, say, the state speech, which is untangling the fiscal thicket, which we just explained, and getting actual money that could be used to fix up I-25, I-70, and other roads that are overly congested and desperately in need of it.
Penn, is this going to work? I guess it might if he brings a lot of rail yard ale from Winkle Brewery, but what do you think of the likelihood of this succeeding?
Yeah, its explanation made you tired already, didn't it? Here's the deal, and I won't go into the governor's specific proposal, but I would hope the governor and his people sit back and reflect and say, you know what? It's time to stop pitching one-off fixes and trying to piecemeal through the budget. Somebody needs to have a logical, comprehensive conversation about the broader thicket, TABOR, 23, Gallagher, all of these things, and talk about how do we resolve this mess we've created of our budget so that we can make sane, rational, year-to-year or multiple-year decisions that best benefit the people of the state of Colorado. And until we have that conversation, we'll keep hearing all of these interesting and esoteric ideas, but most of the people will get lost mid-argument or mid-conversation.
Patty, the town hall is a good idea?
Well, it's certainly a good idea because you've got to start educating people, and it is complicated. I mean, a tangled thicket makes it look pretty. I mean, this is like Little Red Riding Hood getting lost in the woods. They're going to need more than beer. They're going to have to go to the state fairs, you know, the county fairs, and serve free pie and make people sit down and put on kabuki plays and have banjos. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to make it entertaining enough to really make people sit through it, but people need to understand this. I would guess 1 in 100 people in this state has any real idea what TABOR does, much less the Gallagher Amendment, much less 23, and we really need to reconcile all those in the state constitution now.
David, what do you think?
Nobody in living memory in this state has been better at selling tax increases than John Hickenlooper. In his tenure as mayor, he far exceeded all of his predecessors about getting various tax increases approved by the voters. He got referendum C passed statewide, the largest tax increase in the history of the state. And he was the man who sold it to the voters and got it over the top. Since then, I think the magic has run out. He's not been able to get any education tax increase through. In fact, his education proposal was pretty resoundingly defeated. I think he's going to have a tough time going to the voters and saying, well, we got this solution that says, oh, we raise taxes on hospitals, which means we really raise taxes on patients, and we give this money in a complicated way to pay for medical welfare for people. And okay, so that's a welfare state program, but we want to call this an enterprise fund. You know, like as if when Colorado State rents dorm rooms to students, you don't put that in the state budget because it's just operating as an enterprise. They sell you the room for a year, you pay some money for it, that's fine. The hospital tax, Medicaid, all that kind of stuff, that ain't an enterprise. That's the welfare state. And saying, oh, we're going to take that off the books, I don't think we'll sell, nor will saying, let's get rid of the Gallagher Amendment, because that will enable us to raise local property taxes on people's homes. Not a attractive proposal for most folks.
Exactly.